Thank you, Assis, for the brief introduction and setting the tone of National Pharma Tech Connect 2021. As per industry scenario, India is world's third largest drug manufacturer by volume, having the cumulative turnover of 41 billion US dollars. So it has to more than double its turnover to reach the expected ballpark figure of 100 billion US dollars by 2025. Opportunities is immense, but it must not be easy. There would be many challenges in the path, but we have to traverse all challenges and reach to the target. To get roses, we will have to deal with the thorns. So issue is how to achieve this milestone. What are the known hurdles? What are the both expected and unexpected hurdles? What role IT is going to play in reaching to this goal? So and so forth. Today's summit will discuss and deliberate on the importance of and criticality of how and what role information technology is going to play. We, as an organizer, are glad to have such learned and experienced professionals from the pharma industry as speakers. We are certainly going to gain a lot today by listening to them. So without taking much of your time, we are now moving forward to the very first keynote of the day. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Dr. Gurpreet Sandhu, President Council for Healthcare and Pharma. The Council for Healthcare and Pharma is an integrated, non-profit global think tank that advocates the development of sustainable health system around the world. CHP members include domestic and global pharmaceutical companies, providers of diagnostic, medical device manufacturers, hospitals and adjunct services, headquartered in New Delhi. Apart from India, the Council focuses on Africa, Brazil, China, France, Germany, Japan, UK and the USA. Its important areas of work are in ease of doing business, increasing competitiveness, broadening access to safe, efficacious and affordable healthcare services and medicines. Dr. Sandhu has over 3 decades of experience in the chemical, pharmaceutical and healthcare sectors. In addition to his role at the Council, he is the founder of Reva Pharma and services of the company board of directors. Dr. Sandhu is also the chairman of Care India that operates in healthcare delivery services and chain of pharmacies. He has earlier worked in senior positions with leading corporations including the Tatas, Global Traders and Daiichi Sankyo. He is a prominent speaker at various industry forums in India and overseas. So welcome to you, sir, and over to you now.
Hello, gentlemen and ladies. It's a privilege to address you all. And we talk with respect to the healthcare scenario and the role of information technology, which is the key essence of the next, I would say, next 25 years, which is going to revolutionize the way the pharmaceutical and the health industry will pave its way forward. To start with, I will give you a brief about the Council for Healthcare and Pharma. It is an integrated global think tank that advocates the development of sustainable healthcare. It is the first body on the global scenario which includes looks at the whole horoscopic structure of the healthcare cycle, that is hospitals, medical devices, diagnostic companies, and the pharmaceutical industry. And in the pharma industry, we are not only promoting and cultivating the generic bandwidth, but also looking at innovator relationships as part of the council members. Okay, and the council is currently headquartered in New Delhi in India, but has members from Japan, China, India, United States, Europe, and we should be in a very short span. We'll be opening our infrastructure offices in Tokyo and Washington DC. The delay has been primarily on account of COVID, and I hope so that early 2022 we should be scaling our presence in these parts of the world, because Japan and United States plays a very predominant role. United States being one of the key countries in the world, the largest pharmaceutical market and the largest healthcare market in the world, right? And Japan, we are focusing very unlike the other organizations, because Japan is the R&D think tank and actually the nation which has given the maximum number of new molecules or new technologies in diagnostics and has revolutionized the world with the new care in the hospital structure, right? So this is a little brief. The aim and the vision and the think tank of the Council for Healthcare and Pharma is very simple. It's accessibility, affordability of quality medicines, okay, which we are trying to drive not only through the governments, but also through the private sector, and advocating the need of research and development, which is the key essence when you look at an industry, when you look at the generic industry, okay, India is called the pharmacy of the world, but we have issues that yes, the industry has not invested and the government has not supported, okay, the basic R&D at a cost which is required to build the generic bandwidth of India so that we are ensuring that the industry, which is today the second after the information technology exports out of India, reaches the next milestone. All right. So that was a little brief about the Council for Healthcare and Pharma. The next subject which I like to address out is, the issues and challenges being faced by the pharma industry altogether. This is a very, very key essence because when people look at the pharma industry, they would like to know where the industry will be, what are the key issues, what are being faced, okay, how will the problems can be overcome. So I'll try to give you a little brief and predominantly, once the recording is structured, and if there are any queries, I will leave an email ID as well, which, the organizers and Gautam and Ashish can then, as the drivers of the session, can get back to us and we can address them out. Okay. If you look at the aspect with respect to the Indian scenario, we have issues with respect to dependence on China for certain key raw materials. That is the active pharmaceutical ingredient, which is actually the seed to the pharma medicine. Okay. We have a complex regulatory regime structure. The center, which is the drug controller, Government of India, which is the CDSCO, is driving on the central path, and then we have the state regulators. But there has to be more cohesive working between the two to ensure that the regulatory pathway is structured. Larger and deeper relationships have to be cultivated with the international regulators, be PMDA from Japan, be the European Union, WHO, US FDA, and which is becoming very critical is that the real vision of growth for the industry today lies in the emerging markets, and each emerging market in the world, be it even a remote nation in Africa today, wants to respect the regulatory regime. Okay, this is one. Moving to the next issue, which is also looming as a major issue, and which is a hindrance for the R&D investments to capitalize in our nation, is the respect to intellectual property. Intellectual property is actually a wealth of a company. The impetus which they have invested in research and technology going forward, which we as a nation, okay, have miles to respect that, and the certain regimes of a nation are deploying the hindrances, which is becoming a little more complex. Approvals with the regulators, are there, and this has been contested by Nithya Yog as well, which was there in the print yesterday, and we will cover up at the end of my session, the role of the think tank body of India, Nithya Yog, right? Then the most important thing is, a lot of people must be talking that, when we sit across and we have friends or relatives or professional organizations talking, they say, "Oh, do you have a dual manufacturing in India? One is a product which you manufacture for exports, and the second is the product which you sell in the domestic market," right? So the quality standards, the benchmarking of the quality standards is very, very important. India is 1.4 billion as a market in itself, okay, and the market is growing substantially in double digits. right? So the quality essence is a very important aspect when we have to cater down to our domestic population and also to the exports. Well, now we come down to a very critical subject, the role of information technology, the IT sector, how IT sector can imbibe and play its critical role in ensuring that close and cohesive working of the pharma industry takes place, so that the optimization of the IT industry, how it can benefit and how it can play a very important role for the success of the structure of this industry going forward. Both IT is the largest export sector out of India, followed by pharmaceutical. So there is the number 1 and the number 2 ranking for both the industries. But okay, now as far as the pharma is concerned, the standard operating procedures, certain kind of softwares, hardwares, okay, have to be cultivated, right, to ensuring the R&D in the areas of research and development, in the areas of manufacturing, in areas of import structuring, okay, so that it gets a more cohesive and a conducive roadmap. If you see if the infrastructure is there, manufacturing plants are in remote areas, so the accessibility of the flow of the equipment can be maintained. Real-time plant floor visibilities are an issue, and a criticalness gets averted. Monitoring, control, and safety, how the environment is being respected. So all these aspects can be controlled and monitored if we are able to structure systems, and the systems can be done in a way of certain mechanized softwares in specified modules, which can be developed for either the industry specific or a company specific or a technology specific, to ensure that the strength is added and a larger cohesiveness is respected. Number 2, when closer association between the information technology and the pharmaceutical manufacturing takes place, it builds in a larger transparency, and this is what is respected by the international regulators, because when international regulators visit or inspect the facilities, and if the compliances are being followed and adhered to, it definitely adds to a much more credible pathway for the regulator to look at that particular manufacturing infrastructure, and that brings life much more easier in terms of approvals, and without approvals you can't export. So this adds the wealth which we as a nation, if I'm talking with respect to the manufacturing taking place in India, this becomes a plus point advantage using it forward, right? And now we move to a subject which is a very important subject, COVID, which has impacted every human being across the world, be it a rich or a poor nation, all right? And it has caused havoc. We have lost practically, I would say, coming to now 15 months of a life, and mankind has realized how to live in the tough times. But yes, every day is a learning, and this COVID has taught and given a new way of life. People have realized that health is the most important element, or the biggest wealth which a man can have, and this has created its own vision path, taking it forward. So I think one is it has resulted in what does pharma industry gain in rolling out of the vaccines for COVID, right? One is it gives a capitalization of growth. India has played a very critical role, not only for the domestic market, but also on the global scenario by making and offering affordable vaccines, number 1. Prior to that, if you must have seen products like, hydrochloroquine, quinine, or paracetamol, okay, all the basic drugs have been supplied by India at which are regulatory approved, number one, consistent qualities of manufacturing, number three, pricing controls, which we have ensured that the world is getting affordable healthcare medicines out of our nation, manufactured at world-class facilities, okay, which are regulatory approved, right? Then the most important thing is that we have taken care of building up adequate capacities and capabilities in our nation, right? So that the buildup of capacity is very important, so that tomorrow the need of future is catered, all right? Without the need of the future not being catered in the healthcare can be a disaster. In a very short span of time, India actually has addressed the medical device needs to some extent, right? Which was a new industry for us, right? But you will be very proud and that yes, India today is manufacturing and exporting certain of the key required infrastructures, okay, for the medical device side in a small span of around about 5 to 6 months. And the imports, what we were doing from countries like China, Germany, and Japan are now being curtailed, and that is a net saving down to us. And I would like to talk about one of the key problems which I expressed is the API, which is called the active pharmaceutical ingredient, right? Which is actually the seed of medicine. It's actually the medicine which actually gets into the capsule or a tablet or a vial or an injection, right? Now this is an industry which India, developed in a lot to sustain its product life cycle of the generic medicines. But every drug cannot be manufactured in India, right? We have our own limitations. We have to address the environment, health, and safety norms, pollution norms, etc., etc. Okay, and this has resulted in China investing with large capacities supported by the government and the private sector, capacities which made the product fairly very less in terms of its affordability, addressing certain complex chemistry, right, which they have now mastered the art, right? And I feel when we look at this actual imports, what we're doing around about say $4 to $5 billion of imports of the APIs out of China. Okay, it sounds to be a big number, right? But if you look into the wealth, what we as a nation are doing is we have a business of around about coming to $40 billion of the pharma side, right? Versus $3.5 billion of the imports coming out of China. Yes, it is a pain. We have a complexity down here. We have issues with respect to dollar versus renminbi versus INR, and then constraints of us losing our production cycles, etc., etc. But I don't want to look into this aspect into a negativity, right? The industry definitely needs servicing support. So India has cultivated and I would say has moved forward in manufacturing certain complex APIs, which are backward integrated, right? Yes, we will have a reliance on China and the reliance will never go away, all right? So I would propose and request the industry that there should be a cohesive mutual respect, which we should cultivate with the Chinese manufacturing players, and work it in such a way that they do not become a hindrance or a deterrent to the growth of our industry or to our nation, right? Well, there is a very interesting aspect, which is we all talk about is that what is the future? What are the improvements we can get into the pharma landscape or the pharma industry, okay, which is growing in double digits, right? And could be that India becomes one of the few countries in the world in a very few in the next few years to be over $80 billion as an industry, okay, in itself. When we combine the exports and the domestic side, right, we are around about 42 billion today, and in the next 5 to 7 years, this is one of the fastest growing industries, not only generating employment, but also one of the largest revenue earners after the information technology, right? And bringing and this has branded our nation as the pharmacy to the world. We are the only nation which has proved to the world, specifically prior to COVID and after COVID, that we can help billions of people across the world, be it United States, be it China, be it Brazil, be it Russia, that yes, India has stood down in offering affordable, quality, and has stood to support people in its domain, even at the cost of medicine supplies in our country. And I must applaud the gesture and the goodwill which our Honorable Prime Minister has paved with his competent, supportive, officials and ministries to ensure and have the Indian flag flying high by ensuring quality drugs supplied from our nation. All right. Now, what do we gain in the form of improvement? One is that we are cultivating and building our industry. When we say we're building our industry, it adds down to the GDP, it adds to the economies of scale, what we want, right? Strategic partnerships and collaborations. And these strategic partnerships and collaborations which we are looking forward are primarily in the areas of research and development, in contract manufacturing for the bigger industry to be manufactured down in India. And then looking at the new diseases, gentlemen and ladies, this is the biggest complexity what we are facing. We are hit by an antiviral regime, what we are trying to fight today, right? India is the diabetes capital of the world. We can be looking at, and I am making a very big claim, which people will not love it, but I would like to say it in a very, very strong way, that India could be the mental health capital of the world. People when we are depressed, every human being goes through a phase of life. In our nation, we look at mental health as a taboo, but it should not be taken in that way, because it is a part of the way we think, the way we lead our life, and how we would like to influence ourselves is an important aspect which infers to the mental health of a personality or a human being. Okay, so the areas of the problems which we have, are predominantly lifestyle diseases which are growing leaps and bounds in our nation, right? Be it tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 cities of our nation. So the scope of the pharma industry not only pertains to pharma medicines, but also down to building up primary and preventive healthcare centers, affordable hospital care, job generation for paramedics, nursing community, pharmacists, and the most important time is building and ensuring compliance of second line to the doctors, because students coming out of the medical schools, the numbers will be limited. It is a specialized education. So we need to ensure that if we have competent people and trained people in the nursing community, in the paramedics, they could be actually doing a second line of defense to the doctor community, which is where we have a deficiency. And the deficiency is being worked on by the government. If I look into the most populated state of our country, that's Uttar Pradesh, the Prime Minister, Mr. Yogi, and his competent team are working towards having a medical college for some of the key districts in this state. Yes, it will take 2 to 3 years for us to have that gap filled up. So once the infrastructure is created, and this is a vision think tank, which is being supported by our honorable finance minister as well in the budget, that yes, healthcare has been given a very large impetus. We will be this year moving from a 2% of the GDP spend down to over 3%, right, for the healthcare, so that the paucity and the issues which we are facing, the gaps will be fulfilled. And I'm very optimistic that probably in the next 2 to 3 years, our current government will ensure that the healthcare is on the top of the agenda to build the nation. It's a very simple saying: if the health of a nation is good, the GDP will be there, money will flow, employment will flow. Right. Now, it's important that, yes, when I'm looking at these aspects, we look into the role of the Planning Commission of India, which is termed as the Nithya, right? It's a body which advises the Prime Minister, works across with the RBI, works across ministries, and looking at a global vision and a growth sector vision for our nation. Recently, Mr. V.K. Sherawat advocated and has been emphasizing to have a separate ministry of pharmaceuticals, right, structured. Well, this is nothing new. This aspect has been discussed and has been pushed for the last 10 years, because healthcare, pharmaceutical is today the second largest sector after IT. Okay, but unfortunately, there is no separate ministry which has been carved. Right. Now, I think the aspect which has been advocated by Nithya Yoga on behalf of the government of India is very realistic and is required and should be ensured that we reach the scale, because as I expressed, that there are 3 to 4 aspects which have to be looked into. One is the role of regulatory, approval timelines, understanding of the new technologies, of the new research, and the new drugs needs consistent work by very, very competent and very intelligent people. Number 2, infusion of R&D requires clearances. Number 3, understanding of the intellectual property regime, right, which is going to be, and the 4th is ensuring the hand-holding and a relationship build-up with the international regulators across nations. 5thly, to work it out how the import and export of the raw materials flow is structured. So this is a very, very complex regime, and since it impacts, the product is directly consumed by man himself. So we need to ensure that not only to build and sustain the industry what we have in our nation, but to look into its future. And number 3, to keep the flag flying of India as the country which is the pharmacy of the world. We need, I'm repeating, we need to ensure to have a dedicated ministry, okay, supported by very competent people, okay, to get this success moving. Like our Honorable Modi's son, our Prime Minister has been advocating and has been working religiously to ensure the 5 trillion mark of the economy. It can only be brought in if the GDP of a country moves, and GDP is directly related to the longevity of man living on this earth. We have to ensure that our longevity of life, our lifespan today is around about 69 to 70 years in India. We need to push this towards what Japan levels are. Japan, trust me, you'll be surprised when I say a man is on an average lifespan of a man in Japan is 89, and for a lady is 91. Gentlemen, and ladies, this is a very, very important aspect. We need to think, do we want to live longer? If we need to live longer, healthcare has to be given the priority as a key sector. So I think what our Niti Ayog is embarking upon makes a lot of realistic a think tank, and this should be respected and taken up to the next level, all right? And lastly, what I can request you, since we have very eminent people sitting in the sessions today, the role of IT, information, artificial intelligence, building up the new startups is the key need of our nation. It is the key need, and I'm very sure that taking this roadmap, if a closer and a cohesive working is established between the information technology and the healthcare industry and the pharma side, it will add immense wealth to our nation, for the employment sector, and making us as Indians much more proud that we will contribute and look after the mankind on this universe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sandhu, for such informative and thought-provoking speech. We would also like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and giving your valuable inputs on behalf of entire pharma industry altogether. Thank you once again. We would like to request participating delegates to kindly visit exhibition and find out what offering companies has for you.